President Kamala Harris is the top alternative to potentially replace U.S. President Joe Biden if he decides not to continue his re-election campaign.
Thank you.
That's according to 7 senior sources at the Biden campaign, the White House, and the Democratic National Committee with knowledge of current discussions on the topic. Talk of replacing Biden at the top of the Democratic Party's presidential ticket mounted after his fumbling, sometimes incoherent, and widely panned first debate performance against Republican rival Donald Trump last week.
I think he's delivered for the American people. He's laid out an economic plan.
Some have floated alternatives, like Democratic Governors Gavin Newsom from California, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, and Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. But sources who did not wish to be named told Reuters that sidestepping Vice President Harris is wishful thinking and almost impossible.
The stakes of this race could not be higher.
Those sources said 59-year-old Kamala Harris would take over money raised by the Biden campaign and inherit campaign infrastructure. Sources also said she also has the highest name recognition among all the alternatives and the highest polling among Democrats who could seriously be considered a candidate. In a Reuters Ipsos poll published Tuesday, Harris trailed Trump by just 1 percentage point, at 42% to 43%, a difference that was well within the poll's 3.5 percentage point margin of error. That makes her statistically just as strong as Biden, who pulled even with Trump in the latest survey.
Just to take a step back, it was a bad night. We understand that it was a bad night.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre acknowledged on Tuesday the president's poor performance at the debate, but she said he will continue to make the case for a second term.
And when you look at the record of President Biden versus former President Trump, you see President Biden, who has delivered the strongest recovery in modern history, versus the previous administration, whose plans hurts the middle class.
The decision to step aside would be Biden's and his alone. And Harris's aides dismissed any talk of a Democratic ticket that doesn't include both Biden and Harris.
And when we fight, we win. God bless you and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
In a statement, her office said, quote, Vice President Harris looks forward to serving a second term with President
This
Joe
shop
Biden.
owner in southern China's Hunan province is busy cleaning up debris on Wednesday after heavy rainfall and flooding devastated her stationery store. She says she didn't receive any notice to move her goods and asked, how can a family survive in this situation? Heavy rainfall pounded parts of Hunan earlier this week, causing the water level of a local river to reach its highest level in 70 years. Local authorities have activated the maximum emergency response level. This restaurant owner said she had to flee before it became impossible to get herself out. Now, with her business flooded, she says she is heartbroken and doesn't know how she will provide for her children. Last week, President Xi Jinping urged authorities to put in all-out efforts to protect lives as floods and natural disasters increased. China has provided more than $316.4 million in funds to help with rescue efforts and emergency supplies, as deadly floods and landslides caused by almost 2 weeks of torrential rain ravaged several parts of the country. In Changsha, the capital of Hunan, the Xiang and Laodao rivers are expected to hit peak dangerous levels Thursday morning, state media reported.
The Olympic Games should be an economic boon for any city hosting it as visitors flock to the event. Now Paris is due to host the 2024 Games in a few weeks, but high costs and security concerns seem to have put some visitors off. One leading data firm said flight bookings to the French capital are expected to rise by a tenth year on year from June 6th onwards. That's a sharp contrast to the 115% increase in tourist arrivals for the 2016 Rio Games. Even the Tokyo Games, held during the pandemic, saw bookings up by a fifth. Further data also showed hotel reservations have dropped since last year for the weeks ahead of the Olympics. One US-based sports travel agent said it was the lowest bookings he'd seen in a quarter of a century for almost any sports event. The findings show the challenges major cities face hosting such events as more price-conscious consumers can be put off. London experienced something similar in 2012 when it only saw a 3% increase in arrivals. But it's still a blow for Paris. The city's tourist office said average hotel prices during the Games have surged by 70% to $369 a night from last year. Meanwhile, home-sharing site Airbnb says it's seen record Paris bookings. As of March, nights booked in the Paris region during the Games were 400% higher than the same time a year ago. However, Air France-KLM said on Monday it expected weaker than expected summer sales as travellers avoid the Olympics. One luxury travel agency said clients had cited security worries as well as pricing as a reason to postpone trips. France is on its highest level of security alert, with the country also undergoing snap elections. The French capital's chief of police said last month Islamist terrorism is the main security worry. But some travel agencies hope there will be a last-minute rush for tickets and accommodation. They also think potential late discounts could draw crowds. One analytics firm said visitors may arrive by train or car and will not show up in flight data. Train operator Eurostar said ticket sales volumes to Paris for the Olympics and Paralympics travel period were up 7% year on year. The city should also be in for at least some financial success. One recent study estimated the Games would generate up to $12 billion in economic benefits to the Paris region.
Lebanese farmer Zakaria Farah fears his fields are not safe to grow crops in. The 30-year-old worries the land has been poisoned by the Israeli military's use of white phosphorus since October, when exchanges of fire erupted between Israel and Hezbollah in parallel with the Gaza war.
We're stuck inside our houses. It's been 8 months, entering the 9th month. No one is feeling for us. No one feels the daily suffering in our morale. We're suffering every minute. We're afraid for our future. We're afraid for the future of our children, for the future of our land. What can we eat? What can we drink? Maybe the groundwater has phosphorus. We don't know if yes or no. This is why we are really living in hell.
White phosphorus munitions are a chemical weapon and can be used in war to make smokescreens, mark targets, or burn buildings. However, international conventions prohibit their use against military targets located among civilians. Lebanon is a party to those international protocols, while Israel is not. In June, Human Rights Watch said it had verified the use of white phosphorus in at least 17 municipalities in southern Lebanon since October, including some unlawfully overpopulated residential areas. Outside the southern town of Klaya, with shelling in the distance, Farah collected earth samples to send to the American University of Beirut for testing. Some farmers have left altogether, but Farah hopes he can learn whether he can plant his fields once hostilities end.
One feels sorry for his land, but what can we do?
These are the soils that come from different places.
Dr. Rami Zurak, a soil chemist at AUB, has developed a research protocol to collect and examine the samples from various distances from the impact sites.
So what we're looking for is what happens to the soils and to the plants in locations that have received white phosphorus bombing. Does the phosphorus remain? In what concentrations? Does it disappear?
They still need more samples to obtain a conclusive outcome. However, farmers are unwilling to gather more soil due to the steady pace of Israeli shelling.
We have obtained a few results. There are too few to be able to talk about the general area, but they are sufficient for us to say that our methodology is reliable.
Green Southerners, a collective of ecologists and nature lovers in Lebanon's south, have filmed several incidents of shelling they say show telltale signs of white phosphorus attacks. Dozens of streams of white bursting out of a munition over farmlands. The group's chairman told Reuters the attacks amounts to ecocide, deliberate or negligent mass destruction of a natural environment by humans. The Israeli military told Reuters the primary smoke shells it used do not contain white phosphorus. It said smoke shells that do include white phosphorus can be used to create smoke screens and that it, quote, uses only lawful means of warfare.
Nations are struggling to find food, and some say change cannot come fast enough to the Caribbean country. In the capital Port-au-Prince, conflict with armed gangs has cut the city off from suppliers, paralyzed trade routes, and pushed Haiti to its highest level of hunger on record. Miriam Auge stays in a makeshift shelter at a school.
This is the way we live. Sitting here every day, there is no food unless an organization sends us something to eat. After that, there isn't anything else.
Some 5 million people are struggling to feed themselves due to the conflict, according to the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification. That's an international benchmark used to assess hunger. Soaring food prices have also fueled the crisis. The cost of fresh fish was up 60% in March compared to a year ago, according to Haiti's statistics agency. Rita Losanjieu looks after her 2 granddaughters who are 4 and 6. Her sons work odd jobs to help make ends meet. Things are very expensive. It's a problem to buy anything to eat. You must have a lot of money in order to just buy enough for 3 meals. It's very difficult, she says. Unable to work, families are depending on food rations and hygiene kits brought in by NGOs. The World Food Programme is a major meal supplier. But with armed groups holding sway over some routes, its Haiti director Jean-Martin Boer says transporting that food can be tricky.
What we've done in response is shorten our supply chain. So outside Port-au-Prince, we try to do as much as we can with local farmers. Like I said, we work with 170 farmer organizations with 20,000 members to supply the food we use for our programs, and that's been very successful.
He also pointed to a 2024 UN-wide humanitarian fund for Haiti that is over $500 million below target. Haiti's last president was assassinated in 2021. Since then, armed gangs have expanded their power and influence, resulting in looting, arson, mass rapes, and indiscriminate killings. In June, the first wave of a long-delayed United Nations-backed force of mostly African troops arrived in Haiti to bolster security services. And Kenyan police have already begun patrolling the capital. Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conille told the UN Security Council on Wednesday that move marked a critical stage in restoring security.
The arrival of the first contingent of the multinational support kicks off a new era in Haiti.
Residents are cautiously optimistic, although it's unclear when the bulk of the force will arrive.
Hurricane Beryl slammed into Jamaica Wednesday as a powerful Category 4 storm, after causing major destruction over smaller Caribbean islands over the past couple of days. Power outages were widespread across Jamaica, while some roads near the coast were washed out. Authorities say at least 10 people have died, and the tally is likely to increase as communications come back across the islands. Director of the National Hurricane Center, Michael Brennan.
Very dangerous conditions ongoing now in Jamaica, and they are going to continue for the next several hours. Beryl is centered about 265 miles to the east-southeast of Grand Cayman, so the Cayman Islands are sort of next in line for seeing significant impacts. And again, Beryl's moving west-northwest pretty quickly at about 18 miles per hour.
The loss of life and damage wrought by Beryl underscore the consequences of a warmer Atlantic Ocean, which scientists cite as a telltale sign of human-caused climate change fueling more extreme weather. Phone footage shot in Grenada showed destroyed houses and debris from Hurricane Beryl. The Prime Minister of Grenada said there was almost complete destruction of the electrical grid on one of the country's islands, Carriacou. Beryl is the 2024 Atlantic season's first hurricane and the earliest storm on record to reach a Category 5. Further west, in Mexico's tourist epicenter of Cancun, an environmental agency worked to gather eggs from sea turtles' nests for their protection, as the city and the wider Yucatan Peninsula lies in Beryl's predicted path. Cancun's airport was flooded with tourists hoping to catch last flights out before the storm arrives. Mexico's defense ministry has opened around 120 storm shelters and asked visitors to follow instructions from authorities in case they were ordered to go to designated shelters.
The S&P 500 and NASDAQ posted record-high closes in a holiday-shortened trading session Wednesday, as data pointing to a softening economy raised hopes the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates in September. The Dow finished down slightly, while the S&P 500 gained 0.5% and the NASDAQ climbed nearly 0.9%. Both the ADP employment report and weekly jobless claims data pointed to easing labor market conditions ahead of Friday's closely watched non-farm payrolls report. Investors boosted bets of a September rate cut to over 70%, according to LSEG's FedWatch. Notable stock movers included Tesla, which jumped 6.5% Wednesday after surging more than 10% Tuesday when it posted a smaller-than-expected drop in second-quarter vehicle deliveries. At least 5 brokers also raised their price targets on the stock, which is trading at its highest level since January. And shares of AI chip darling NVIDIA gained more than 4.5%. Keith Buchanan, senior portfolio manager at Globalt Investments, said that with high-flying shares of mega-cap tech companies powering so much of the S&P, guidance from companies like NVIDIA will be key going forward.
The success of the largest 10 names in the S&P 500, as they grow larger and have, again, powered the indices to, again, in a historic fashion, they become victims of their own success. And there's an increased microscope on every facet of the earnings trends and revenue from these companies, and very rightfully so. So be a laser focus on the trends from a guidance standpoint, even more so than this past quarter, how these companies feel about earnings and revenue going through the second half of 2024 and particularly into 2025.
Other stocks on the move included Paramount Global, which rose almost 7% after Shari Redstone's National Amusements reached a preliminary deal to sell its controlling interest in the media giant to David Ellison's Skydance Media. And shares of First Foundation slumped nearly 24% after the lender, which holds a huge portfolio of multifamily real estate loans, disclosed a $228 million unexpected capital raise. Markets will be closed Thursday for the July 4th holiday.
Japanese companies delivered the biggest wage hikes in 3 decades this year. That's according to the nation's largest union on Wednesday. It said monthly pay was up 5.1% on average this year, with both big and small firms following the trend. The outcome of what's called the Shunto, or spring labour negotiations, is seen as key for Japan to achieve a positive cycle of economic recovery. It would help improve household income and consumption to outweigh the rising cost of living. Any positive and self-sustaining growth could also help policymakers put an end to deflation. It might also bring the Bank of Japan closer to further interest rate hikes. In mid-March, major firms said pay rises had accelerated to 5.2.8%, which was the biggest since the 1990s. The central bank then made its landmark decision to end negative interest rates. But income inequalities remain, with small firms finding it hard to offer big wage increases. To address such issues, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's administration has vowed to raise minimum hourly pay to 1,500 yen, or $9.27, from around 1,000 yen by the mid-2030s. Lufthansa finally won EU approval to buy a stake in ITA Airways on Wednesday. The deal is for 41% of the Italian airline and worth $350 million. The German carrier promised a swift integration of ITA in a statement. The deal follows an antitrust review by the European Commission. Both Lufthansa and Italy's Ministry of Economy had offered multiple remedies to get the agreement through. EU antitrust head Margrethe Vestager said the remedies fully addressed competition concerns. She further said it ensured a sufficient level of competitive pressure remained on all relevant routes. The Commission confirmed Lufthansa and ITA had agreed to cede Italian short-haul routes to 1 or 2 rivals. Lufthansa can only close the deal once rivals start operating the routes. Analysts say it will not be easy to turn around ITA, and Lufthansa will likely need to make a significant investment to rebuild it. However, it should boost Lufthansa's presence in the lucrative southern European market and offers key long-haul routes.
Really like behind the scenes of The Apprentice, and how did Mark Burnett navigate their complex relationship? Let's dig in. Ever since Donald Trump rose to fame as a business leader and television personality, his behavior behind the scenes has been a topic of interest. Trump, who loved hosting The Apprentice, has been the subject of several negative rumors regarding his conduct on the show. A journalist, Ramin Satuda, who covered Trump for years, provided insights into Trump's behind-the-scenes behavior during an appearance on the Citizen McCain with Meghan McCain podcast. Satuda, promoting his book Apprentice in Wonderland, shared what he learned from interviewing Trump and around 50 people associated with The Apprentice. Satuda revealed that many who worked with Trump on the show described him as warm, charismatic, and involved, even if they didn't support him politically. Trump reportedly took his mentorship role seriously, getting close to contestants, mentoring them, and writing letters of recommendation. This level of involvement was contrasted with other reality TV judges like Tyra Banks, who kept more distance from contestants. Despite these positive accounts, there have been allegations of inappropriate behavior. Satuda mentioned that Trump was sometimes inappropriate with contestants, flirting and making them uncomfortable. Additionally, there have been persistent rumors about a racist recording of Trump during his time on the show. However, Satuda found no evidence of such a tape, and both Trump and The Apprentice creator Mark Burnett have denied its existence. Trump argued that if such a tape existed, it would have leaked by now, and claimed he would never have used such language while being mic'd. Satuda also discussed Mark Burnett's complex position regarding Trump. Despite not being a Trump supporter, Burnett, who is credited with creating and producing The Apprentice, finds himself in a tough spot. According to Satuda, Burnett does not want to betray Trump, but also doesn't support him politically. Satuda's insights paint a nuanced picture of Trump's behavior on The Apprentice. While he was described as warm and charismatic by some, there were also allegations of inappropriate conduct. The rumors about a racist recording remain unproven. These revelations provide a deeper understanding of the dynamics behind one of reality TV's most famous figures.
Thank you. Thank you. It's technically Are you going to use the long lens like that?